kind of blade are you? Like tool. What kind of tool are you? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Chuck. I'm an educator with a new job this year and a whole bunch of time in the car with a new commute, and thus this podcast. Setup simple. Me in my car, pushing record, and talking to myself. You, listener, now along for the ride, riding shotgun. Thank you for joining me today. So I've been thinking a lot about myself as a worker, about my talents, about how I contribute to a school, and even really more specifically, I think that was this weekend. I was at a young youth preteen conference with chaperoning for my church this weekend, and the conference on the stage, they were talking more about being kingdom workers. It's the same organization that I went to high school conference over the summer where I first started talking about and playing around with the idea of being a kingdom worker. So it was the same organization that hosted, so they used the same verbiage, and they were introducing, this was a 4th to 6th grade group, and they were introducing the idea of what is a kingdom worker, what does a kingdom worker do, what in the world does that mean? And there was a verse, Colossians 3:17, which I'm going to roughly paraphrase as I'm driving, but that verse, Colossians 3:17, says, whatever you say, whatever you do all those things for Jesus, and give thanks to the Lord for those opportunities in Jesus' name. And so what they wanted the kids to know is, it was called 3E too, that was the theme. And so everyone can do kingdom work, everything can be used for kingdom work, and kingdom work can be done everywhere. One of the very closing activities or moments that we had is they led the kids and the adults, because we're modeling that behavior too, they led us through writing down a list of people that we could do kingdom work with, a list of talents or things that we could use for kingdom work, those things, and where we might do that work. So I've been thinking about this idea as my classroom and in my role as a teacher for many, many years. I just got the kingdom work verbiage on it this year, but I have an agenda, and that's to be a kingdom worker in schools. That is my agenda. What that looks like, usually day to day, is just I aim to show kids love and grace, and also just help them to be their best selves in a way that reflects the creativity, intelligence, and love of their Creator. Rarely means that I'm saying the word Jesus in the classroom setting, but that is my, in education we talk about our why. That is my why every single day, and sometimes when kids ask about it, I get to be more specific about that. But so thinking about my talents, like, do I think I'm a good teacher? Yes. Do I think that I'm a good listener? Very much so. I think I'm a good paraphraser. I think that active listening is a thing that a skill that we talk about with students a lot. And those C's of creativity and collaboration and I should know the 4 C's. Critical thinking. Like I think I have a lot of those. And so those skills make me a good teacher, a good listener, a good mentor, a good coach. They don't necessarily make me a good math teacher specifically. I have an analytical-ish mind, which makes me able to teach math, but just as an example, there was a question that, like this word problem that one of my children at home had to do in their algebra class recently that my wife sent to me, and she was like, I can't figure this out, can you help me? And so I worked on it for like an hour, knowing what algebra questions should look like, knowing pretty much what they were trying to ask, but still just like working an hour on doing the wrong thing several times so that I could get to the solution. And the next day I showed this to one of my colleagues, and they admitted, they're like, oh, that's a tough question. And then they answered it in like 3 minutes. They did a lot of the same wrong, or they talked through the same wrong things that I did, but they got there a lot quicker. Whether you think about that as like a shortcut, like their path was just shorter, or they had a faster mode of transportation to get to that solution, or maybe a combination of both of those things. But we got to the same answer in a slightly different way, and definitely they were much faster. And so, like, I have a lot of talents that I think make me a very capable, strong, creative math teacher. But if we're thinking about the original question that I put at the beginning of this episode, what kind of blade are you? What kind of tool are you? I think I'm a Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knives are amazing. They have the small little fine blade. They got the bigger blade. They got the little toothpick thing in the end. They got scissors. They've got screwdrivers. You can get the one with the corkscrew. A Swiss Army knife is very handy to have in many, many situations. And probably also rarely is that the best tool for any of those jobs. Like, there are better just knives. If all you want is just a blade that fits in your pocket, there are much better knives that you can get for that are going to be sharper, going to have a more durable blade. They're going to be more comfortable in your hand. So that's like, I think that's the equivalent of someone who is like really good at math and is also a really talented teacher. Those are not always the same. People usually have a combination of really good teacher and some math, or really, really gifted math mind, and has to build in the teaching skills. But so, because I'm a Swiss Army knife, I can, I talked about this the other day in the episode about being a principal. Like, because I'm a Swiss Army knife, I can, instead of pulling out my math blade, I can pull out my science blade. I can pull out my reading blade. I can pull out my just gifted education blade. I can pull out my social studies history corkscrew thing, and do all of those things nominally well. Definitely in a pinch, you want a Swiss Army knife, or to be most prepared for any situation. A Swiss Army knife is great. That's why the Swiss invented them, I guess. But like, think about like chef's knives, if you're into that. Chefs are very particular about the knives that they use, and there's a specific role for each one of those knives that they get. If they wouldn't use the same knife for every task, in the same way that you don't necessarily use the same teaching strategies for every every subject. They look a little bit different depending on the subject, even if they have the same name. Like a phrase, opportunities to respond, that we used in my last school a lot for some of our professional development. That looked slightly different for me as a math teacher than it did for the humanities teacher. And it looked kind of similar-ish for the science teacher on my team, but still a little bit different also. And she had some things that she had in common with the humanities teacher. And so each blade for each class, each mode of teaching has to be a little bit different. And some blades are better than others. But the more, I feel like I have a lot of blades in my Swiss Army knife or in my pouch. They're not all the best blades. Some are better than others, but I've got a lot of them, and that's just like the person that I am, I think, as I said on that principal one. I'm a Swiss Army knife, and I think part of maturity and growth is just knowing that that is you. And if when you're a leader, if you are leading a team of someone that is a better blade for that tool, then you see the talents of that person with that tool, and you make that person shine. Instead of making them use your little Swiss Army blade, they use their chef's knife. That is Damascus steel or whatever, and really good. Yeah, so hi, I'm Chuck. I'm a Swiss Army knife, and I think that's great. What kind of knife are you? What kind of tool are you? Let me know what you think in the comments. What kind of tool are you? How's that work out in your job or in your profession or your classroom? And thanks again for coming along on this drive. I'd love to turn this into a carpool, so please share this episode, this podcast, if it resonates with you. Share it on any of your socials or emails or texts or in real life, and we can turn this drive time diary into a drive time carpool. And if you have any thoughts or any feedback, I'd like to hear that on the X at Chuck C. Baker, on Instagram at Mr. C. Baker for Math, or at Drive Time Diary. You can find me on YouTube Music at Drive Time Diary. You can leave a comment there also. And Spotify voice message, still haven't gotten one of those yet. If you could be the first one, that would make my day. I'm in the driveway now, so that means this episode has to be over. Until next time, drive safe.